Hello, everybody. So we'll just wait just a few minutes for some more people to get kind of popped on here. And I'm having some glitchy internet stuff happening, and I'm not quite sure why. So we'll kind of figure this one out here as we go a little bit. So I don't know why we're getting all glitchy. It's even when I wasn't even logged in, it was still glitching and telling me that the chat was disconnected. Then it's connected. So I'm like, oh, so then I grabbed the shungite. So I'm hoping it's not me doing anything wrong. We'll see. All right. So let's see. If you guys haven't ever been with me on a live, this is going to be pretty easy. So you'll notice that there is a chat bar. So this is going to be pretty interactive. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask. But I'm going to kind of start here a little bit and talk really kind of a little bit about like what makes something haunted. Or maybe what are the factors that kind of lead into it. And it's not always what you necessarily think. It's not always what you see on TV. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. First and foremost, if you guys don't know me, I'm a very skeptical person. So when I first started doing ghost investigations, quite literally almost 20 years ago, I'm still doing them every once in a while. So when I started doing 20 years ago, I am not one that if the door closes, I want to know if there is a draft. I want to know what's going on. So I'm a very skeptical person right off the bat. So I am not one to sit there and label something, oh, this is haunted right off the bat, let alone sit there and say, oh my gosh, this is demonic. So guys, hey, every time. I swear to God, they never do this unless I'm ready to do a live, and they do this every time. So I'm just having some camera issues and some glitchy issues. So we're going to see if we can fix this here. But like I said, I'm naturally a very skeptical person. And so I'm not one to believe right off the bat that if a door closes, that it's necessarily haunted. Like I said, there has to be a lot more factor for me to believe that. And I'm going to show you some pictures here of some of the things that I've collected over the years. I'll also show you some pictures that to me are not haunted, which I get probably at least once or twice a week. Somebody will send me a picture asking me, hey, is this my grandma? Is this my mom? Is this my dad? Or, who do you think this might be? And 9 times out of 10, I have to tell them, I'm sorry, guys, it's dust. So like I said, I'm a very skeptical person when it comes to ghost hunting or anything like that. Even though I'm sensitive, even though, yes, I can see them. Yes, I can hear them. Yes, I can talk to them and communicate with them. Sometimes it's an active haunting. Other times it's residual. What do I mean by that? Okay, so active meaning that there's an actual ghost in the house, right? So, and a residual haunting is something that occurs the same time every night, and it's more or less like an imprint. So it's something that happens the same time every night, or it could happen the same time like once a year. So that very well could be an imprint type of energy. So you have to really decipher, is this intelligent? Is this an actual ghost? A spirit, a soul, or is this something that's a residual imprint that's kind of left in energetically speaking, left kind of behind, so to speak. So I always have to determine that first and foremost. And there is a different feel. And I tell people, if you see 1111, if you see that, maybe not daily, but if you do see it, then that means it tell me that you're psychic. Okay. So that's why I tell people I am nothing special. I'm not. I just happen to have had my abilities a little bit longer than most. That's all. But I always encourage people that if you're going to do an investigation, really listen in, feel the energy, feel, hear, see. What do you see? Do you see things off the corner of your eye, which usually you do? Because the rods and cones in your eyes don't always allow you to see spirit dead on with your eyes. Almost always you're going to see them off to the corner of your eyes. So when I'm doing things like that, I'm always kind of paying attention to the corners of my eyes. But I always have to tell people, just because something shows up gray, dark, or gritty looking, that doesn't mean that it's automatically evil or demonic. It doesn't. And you'll know if something's truly evil or demonic or something like that. You will know it in your soul. There is no other way of me telling you that you can't mistake that. And so I always have to ask people, is it your fear, or is it really something that bad? So 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell me, well, I'm just scared and I don't know what to do. Okay, well then fine, we can fix that. So that's why I want to talk a little bit about, the differences and all that stuff too. So usually when I get phone calls, almost always it is because the first question I'm going to ask is, are you remodeling your house? 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah, I am actually. I don't know why, but whenever somebody decides to remodel the home or the house, activity absolutely spikes. So I will see that. That seems to be a fairly common factor. Another thing that I see is that they're sitting on an old limestone foundation or a quartz foundation. Quartz and limestone hold water, they hold energy pretty easy. So spirit is able to use energy out of those sort of things. Another thing is I'll ask them, is your house located near some power lines or like a power grid or something along those lines? Because again, that does amplify the energy. That's why I don't think it's a good idea to literally be sleeping underneath huge power lines. That's not good. So you won't get any sleep anyway. And then the other thing that I've noticed too is that usually some of the better hauntings that I've seen are usually around water, especially moving water, creeks, things like that, lakes, yes. But almost always that's almost where I see the most activity, although it can happen in newer homes being built as well, because location is definitely a factor. So here in Nebraska, these big hills, those Native Americans used to bury their dead on hills. And so nowadays we're just bulldozing the hill over and plopping a house up there, and you can't figure out why you feel like you're being watched constantly. I'm like, gee, maybe that would be why. So, so like I said, usually those are the factors that I'm going to almost always see with hauntings, things like that. Other times they never had any issues at all. And then out of nowhere, they start having issues. Well, if that's the case, then somebody invited spirit to come in, or they open up a portal of some sort with a divination tool, maybe a pendulum, maybe a Ouija board, something like that. And they didn't know what they didn't know what they were doing. And it wasn't properly shut down, or they egged it on. Or the other one could be maybe they committed suicide in the home, something like that. Another one is if you have, like an alcoholic or somebody with severe mental health issues that refuses to get help. A lot of times they will have a negative entity attachment. And when they get home, that negative entity causes trouble. So there is kind of a difference between all of those. But almost always, if it comes up out of nowhere, there's a reason. Sometimes I do see that with antiques. I see that a lot with antiques too. So if you're going to get an antique and bring it home, the first thing you're going to do is get it outside and sage the hell out of it, please. So because if you sage it, you're removing any energy before it comes into your home. So another thing that I often mention is, if you hear three knocks at your door, don't open the door. We all have cameras damn near nowadays. So if there's nobody there, don't open the door, because at that point you're inviting in whatever doesn't need to come in because you just gave it permission. So those are just kind of a few, I guess, tips and tricks to kind of figure things out. There is a difference between, ghosts, poltergeist, negative entity attachment, demonic stuff. To me, it's a feel. I can definitely feel that. So, but like I said, I'm gonna be real with you. For me to believe that it's going to be demonic, there's going to be some things that people will tell me, and a lot of times they will tell me that they have severe nightmares. But it's not just one nightmare every once in a while. It is a continued, repetitive, serious nightmare that they're getting raped, tortured, beaten, something like this. A lot of times there's going to be maggots or dead flies around, and not just a few, like lots in the windowsill. They hear knocking, scratching, clawing, they get bit. Blood coming down walls, crosses upside down. That's real. But again, I've been doing this for 20 years. That's a rare bird. I think a lot of people just automatically want to assume that it's something like that. And 9 times out of 10, it is not. It's not. So because I'm not one to put a bunch of fear into stuff. I'm very, like I said, logical. I think that things on TV are absolutely dramatized. But if you've never been on an investigation, you'll find out really quick that it's quite boring. So, yeah, a lot of times I'm like, oh, there's going to be something happening. And then you hear, and you're like, ooh. What I find ironic is my kids will show me every once in a while some of these videos, and everybody always runs away. And I'm like, why are you running away? Why aren't you walking towards it? You're ghost hunting or you're investigator. Go investigate it. And it's amazing because my kids they're like, you don't do that. You run. I'm like, what for? I'm like, you're there to investigate it. Investigate it. That you got to debunk it. So, but my kids are like, you're crazy. You're crazy. I'm like, no, that's what if you're there to do a job, that's the job. So, I'll see that every once in a while, but my kids are just funny because they're like, you wouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, pretty sure I do. So, is it true you can ask a spirit not to follow you or attach after you leaving a ghost hunt? Yes, you can, Donnell. Yes, you can. And I will tell you the first thing that because I used to do ghost tours, everybody in my ghost tour would have to have a piece of black tourmaline in their pocket because nothing can attach or possess if you have a piece of black tourmaline. I do encourage people that if you are doing a ghost investigation at any point in time, if you feel like stop. If you feel like you need to throw up, because nothing can possess if you are expelling. So, and a lot of times if you're sick to your stomach that way, get out of Dodge, get out of the house. So, because nothing good is going to come up. If you're feeling ill, that means to tell me that something's really close or trying to possess you. But at the same time, your body is even fighting what your intuition is telling you at that point. So, Inish, you were asking if I find any spirit activity more prominent in different times of the year. No, I really don't. I haven't really noticed any difference between a full moon, a new moon, Halloween, I honestly haven't noticed any difference because to me, spirits are all around all the time. And if you guys really knew how many spirits were around all the time, you'd never feel alone again. So trying to think of what else. After you do a ghost investigation, like I said, I encourage people to use your tools. While you're doing a ghost investigation, I encourage people to use tools, whether that is a pendulum. So here's a pendulum of mine. So a lot of times you can ask questions. Hey, is there anybody here? Things like that. I know the dowsing rods are excellent to be able to use too, especially if you're trying to locate things or locate spirit. Dowsing rods are great to use. So I encourage people to definitely use your tools. Bring your cell phone, but don't count on that sucker working. So cell phones never work for me. So I always have a backup to a backup to a backup. And that includes backup batteries, everything else, because when spirit is near, it will absolutely drain your electronics very quickly. So I always have literally blister packs of batteries in the car. I don't bring them in with me because if it's I just need that break sometimes. So a lot of times I'm gonna keep the extra batteries in the car, but they will drain it if they're close. But that's almost always the best time to get like EVPs, which is EVP is another term for electric voice phenomenon. I usually get EVPs pretty easy. But the best way to hear them back is pump up that bass a little bit, put the treble down, pump up the bass. And a lot of times you can hear it. If you can play it back a little bit slower, sometimes you can also hear that as well. So I always encourage people to record at least audible best you can. And then if you're going to take pictures, I always tell pictures to take them in a series of 3 very quickly, 1, 2, 3. Because here's the deal. If you capture something within those 3 series, it's harder for you to debunk it. So I'll show you a few here on my phone that I have that when I first saw them, I couldn't say no because this person had taken 3 in a row and you could see it was like snap, snap, snap. And it was the middle one that actually contained a great shot. So I always tell people take a series of 3 because it's harder for you to debunk it. So it's not like a finger in the picture or something like that. So do you close a pendulum like a Ouija board? Yes, I always just say, thank you. I just end it by saying thank you. So that's always my way of closing out the conversation. So Let's see here. Outside of that, I always encourage people. There's a lot of different tools out there now. I know that Angie and I have something, and I didn't even think about bringing it. It's called the Flear. And so what the Flear is, and I think you can get it on like Amazon for anywhere from $100 to $300. Hey, stop it! That's enough. Oy. They never do this. Swear. It's only when I'm doing this. So we have something called the Flear, and that is it's like a heat type temperature camera, and I love it. And it attaches right to the bottom of your phone, and it comes in with an app. Love it. So there's a couple other things that loop around from the AM or the FM radio. That it does kind of a continual loop, and every once in a while you can pick up conversations on that as well. So I have both of those. They work great for me. So I always encourage everybody to try all the different tools and technology that's out there. It's pretty interesting. I don't need to use a scrying mirror, Brad, because I can see scrying mirrors are excellent for those people that are working on their clairvoyance. So like I said, for me personally, I don't need one. So, cause I can see without them. So, but yeah, these are good questions. So that's a fuzzy. So, I don't know of any phone apps, honestly, that are really that good, but there is one that I was actually kind of surprised about. It was one it's called Ghost Tube. And so I was screwing around with it. And I was sitting next to my husband, and I kind of said, I'm like, oh, I got this new ghost app, but it never really works. So I thought maybe, well, if you sit down next to me, maybe it will. So it really didn't say anything. Like it said a few words. We were like, meh. But I turned it off, did something. I came back, sat back down. And that's when the ghost app said Christian. And that just happens to be Eric's son who he lost. So that was kind of weird. So I don't, for me, I haven't really used it out in the field. I've just kind of used it a little bit here and there. I honestly don't know if there's much to it or not. I can be real with you. I haven't really tried it out in the field yet. So to see if I could debunk it or not. But other than that, I'm trying to think of what else. A lot of times, if it's kind of a nasty ghost, you're definitely going to feel that energy, and you'll know, especially when you kind of walk in the room, you'll just feel it. There's definitely a feel. That's why I always tell people, I don't care if you don't have any psychic abilities whatsoever. Everybody can feel an energy shift within a home, whether that is going through a threshold, whatever that is. Everybody can feel for the most part. And so I always explain to people, make sure that you're using all of your senses. We were actually talking about Ghostbusters here just the other day, and somebody was asking me, how close that is to reality. And I'm like, actually not too far off. How many of you guys have ever been somewhere or went on a ghost investigation or something like this, and you were walking, and then all of a sudden you felt like you kind of walked through like a cobweb or a spider web, but there's nowhere that there would be a spider web, right? Well, probably just walk through a ghost, and that residual thing that you're feeling is actually ectoplasm. So an ectoplasm, you'll know that you kind of went through it because it'll make your skin almost greasy. And it's almost like as if somebody took like Crisco and put it all over your face. That's what it feels like. So yes, that is a thing. That, like I said, a lot of times you just walk through probably a spirit, and it's a little bit of ectoplasm. So that is a real thing. Let's see here. Let's see. Sister and I believe our parents' house active on some experiences. Any other tools? Honestly, usually a pendulum is great. Like I said, you can use that AM FM loop. I forget what they call it, but it's just like I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember what you call it, but those are excellent to use too, to try to be able to communicate. You know what? Sue is asking if there's a specific hour. Not necessarily, but I will tell you between the hours of 2 and 4, that's usually when we're not thinking of anything. So therefore, we're in a meditative state. So it is a little bit easier than at that point for you to be able to hear spirit or see or sense or whatever. But I've caught just as many ghosts during the day as I have at night. So I think a lot of people like to just do it at night because it adds a little bit more element of scary. But for me, it doesn't really matter if I go during the day or night or evening or anything like that. So let's see. Spirit box. That's it, Donnell. Thank you. So a spirit box is an AM or an FM station that it like goes through the whole entire frequency of stations, and it goes through that very, very quickly. So a lot of times you can pick up words, things like that. So yeah, and Flear it's FLEIR or yeah, I can't remember Flear. I don't remember. I have to look that one up too. So I haven't done any ghost stuff for a while. Can you tell? So the easiest way, I was going to tell you this one too. The easiest way to cross over a ghost is actually fairly simple. I think that a lot of people like to make it a little bit more complex. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is just get a white candle and you light it, and just say something like, "Okay, God, angels, please, surround me with the white light of the Holy Spirit," because you want to protect yourself first. And then you can sit there and ask God to send down the white light around the candle to give them basically an avenue for them to cross over. So at that point, then you just tell spirit, "Hey, your loved ones are over here on the other side and it's time for you to go." So but that usually helps them to cross over pretty easy. You will know if you crossed over a spirit because not only will you feel a weird zip up your back, but it'll feel lighter. And then within 48 hours, you're definitely going to get a sign of a thank you. Last time that happened to me, I crossed a spirit over and a butterfly landed on my chest and went open and closed 3 times and then it flew off. I'm like, "You're welcome." So do drugs make you more sensitive? Actually, not really. I guess maybe weed might because it quiets the ego down. But it wouldn't make you more sensitive. It would just quiet down your ego to where you'd actually be able to pay attention maybe a little bit more. Have you ever tried the Estes method during investigation? I'm not familiar with what that is. So I guess I have my own method of doing it. No, Andy, that's definitely you're definitely being able to hear spirit at that point. So yeah, it's called clairaudient, or the ability to hear spirit. But like I said, yeah, Flear, FLIR. That's right. That's what it is. So outside of that, let's see here. A lot of times, Carrie, if you're asking me if there's any spirits in your home, 9 times out of 10, if you regularly sage your house, no, you don't have to worry about that, because what saging does is provides a bit of a smoke screen. So you might be bright, like a bright beacon, like a lighthouse. But if you sage, it kind of puts a bit of a smoke screen between you and anybody else who might see you. So that's why I sage here probably weekly, every other week. One, because I got kids constantly coming in and out. But number 2, it's to protect my energy. Because I don't want to be talking to, somebody who died on the Mormon Trail. Like I want sleep like everybody else. So 9 times out of 10, if you're saging, you're still in, leaving your loved ones in, but anybody that you don't know or anybody that you don't give permission to for you or your family stays outside. So that's why a lot of times people will sit there and tell me that they see things outside their window, and I'm like, good, don't open the window. Like, leave them out. So don't invite them in. Don't want to do that. So I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, the biggest thing is that I will tell you, when I do go investigating, I have found that spirit is so much more interactive if you're nice. If you say please and thank you, I am telling you, you will get more with honey than vinegar. So I have gotten better pictures by saying, "Hey, come behind me and take a photograph." Now, mind you, I didn't say picture. because you have to think back in the era, did they even know what a picture was? Probably not, but maybe they might know what a photograph is. So if you ask them to show up, near you, around you, or not, or over there, believe it or not, they will show up. But if you command and demand and belittle and berate like they do on TV, I am telling you, you're not going to get nearly the response. So even if you go to a very known haunted place, I get so much better reactions or interactions with spirit when I'm nice. So the other thing I'm going to tell you is I know a lot of people that love to go investigating without permission. And nowadays, with everybody owning a gun, you have got to be very careful. So I always encourage people to make sure that you get permission. So, and you would be surprised. All you have to do is ask nicely and they will allow it. I know the girls and I went to Deadwood 2 or 3 years ago. We stayed at the Bullock Hotel, which, by the way, was the dumbest thing I think I've ever could have done because that hotel is very haunted. We decided to stay there. Kelly didn't get any sleep because there was a little girl pulling the covers off of my feet at night. But needless to say, I've learned not to stay in like I said, haunted hotels. But we ended up going on a ghost tour. And there really wasn't a whole bunch of people around. And it was just us. We started talking small talk. I don't tell people what I do for a job right off the bat. I really don't. And he just goes, well, you guys are the only ones here on a ghost tour. You want to go upstairs? I'm like, yeah. So we went upstairs. So a lot of times if you're just cool, they'll give you the sneaky. So he gave us a sneak peek. It seems like whenever us girls go out, we always we're able to do the sneak peeks. So we went up to what looked like, I said, was this an old brothel? And he was like, yeah, actually it was. I'm like, yeah, I could tell. So, but yeah, there was clearly a murder in one of the rooms. And the minute I walked in, I'm like, nope. He goes, why? And I'm like, I don't know. That's some, because I could feel the residual energy of the murder. And he said, yeah, there actually was a murder. I said, she was pregnant. And he said, that was the rumor, is that she told her regular that she was pregnant and he killed her. I'm like, yeah, he did. So, but it was pretty interesting. But I always tell people, if you're just really cool, you'll be surprised at where you'll be able to go. Seven Sisters Road. Yep, it's haunted. Not as creepily as I thought it would be, but you can feel it. You can feel it. I'm the weird one though, that it doesn't matter where we go. I know where all the cemeteries are located. So cemeteries have a feel, that sounds weird, and a taste. So churches, all churches have a taste. They taste like honey. Cemeteries to me feels like loam. So I'm a horticulturalist. So we had to take some soil classes and we had to eat dirt. So we know what it feels like. And I don't know why, but cemeteries always feel very loamy to me. And it doesn't matter where at in the United States. So, but I can always tell where cemeteries are. But you were asking if trees have spirits. To a point, yes. Anything living does hold or have a spirit, yes. Trees and cemeteries don't necessarily hold spirit per se, but they would definitely amplify any spirit around there. So if any spirit wants to try to communicate with you in a cemetery, which by the way, to me, cemeteries are very peaceful. I don't know if that's the way for everybody, but cemeteries for me are very, very peaceful. But the trees, again, I'm a horticulturalist, matter to me because not only can I look at a tree and see how old it is or date it, but 9 times out of 10, it's almost just like where these larger trees are at, is where some of the older part of the cemetery is. Not only that, here in Nebraska, you're not going to see pine trees on a hill. Pine trees don't grow natural here. So if I see pine trees on a hill, guess what? Somebody's buried there every single time. So that's an easy way here in Nebraska or anywhere out really in the Midwest to be able to see if there's a cemetery. You look for the pine trees up on a hill or just look for the pine trees. If it's not, I mean, obviously if it's not a windbreak, most unlikely cemetery. So, yes, Jennifer, I would say that probably was your dad. Yeah. Lots of decomp. Yeah. So, but like I said, for me, I think cemeteries are weirdly peaceful. But honestly, that's where I learned a lot was in cemeteries because I would try to, you know, first of all, you got to ask permission to go into a cemetery because there are guardians to every cemetery, which are elementals or cryptoids or whatever you want to call them, but they are elementals. And so I always ask permission or pay my way in or pay my respects. And I usually do that with 3 pennies right at the gate. So I'd leave my 3 pennies and then, I'd get permission from the guardian and I would head on in. And then that's when I would actually learn that's how I could differentiate. I could feel a headstone and go, okay, this was a female, this was a male, this was a baby, this was I could, because once I feel, it's called psychometry. Once I feel, then I could get an idea or a picture or image in my head. That's honestly how I started practicing. So, have you ever heard of Spring Ranch in Nebraska from Hastings? I have. I will tell you, Tara, Hastings, and there's a few places here in Nebraska, Hastings, Beatrice, and Fremont. Those are the creepiest, weirdest places. Brownsville, I got to add Brownsville to that too. And downtown Council Bluffs. So that's usually for me the most activity that I've seen, especially downtown Council Bluffs. It's next to the river. It's very old. So Bellevue kind of is the same way. But like I said, Fremont is lots of Native American stuff there. But Beatrice and Hastings, I don't know what y'all have there, but you got some weird energy. And when I mean weird, I mean, I have never known so many kids to cross over in one area due to weird circumstances. I have yet to figure out what the hell's going on in your guys' towns. So it's very strange. The 3 pennies, it's a sign of respect for me. But in my world, everything is 1, 3, 6, 9, 12. So I haven't been to Ball Cemetery yet. For me, I've never been there. It's weird. It's the cemetery. It's the outside of the cemetery that I'm more curious about than the inside of the cemetery, believe it or not. But I haven't been there. Hummel Park's pretty active. I will show you some pictures here from Hummel Park. But yeah, there's quite a few different ones. Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Arkansas lays, the whole state is built with around freaking quartz. So I think the whole state of Arkansas would be easily haunted. How about that? I still have yet to go to like Gettysburg. I honestly, I don't think I'd get any. I wouldn't get any sleep. I just wouldn't. It wouldn't matter where you went. I wouldn't get any sleep down there. So we just recently got back from West Virginia, and there was a couple places that we kind of went to that I was like, I don't like this area. And then you come around the corner and then there's a plaque saying that it was a battlefield from the Civil War. And I'm like, eh. So that was spicy enough. I can't imagine going to Gettysburg or something like that. I like sleep. Crescent Hotel, I haven't been there. A cryptid or cryptoid. So to me, that also falls in the line with like Bigfoot, fairies, gnomes, things like that. So the cosmos, I've been there in South Dakota. I don't know. That's what I'm like, did they just build that sucker on an angle and just call it the cosmos? Or is that really a natural vortex? Like, I'm skeptical about that one. I really am. I get the premise of it. I understand the premise of it. I'm a skeptical person though. And I'm like, well, yeah, they could have built it at an angle. They could have made it straight, built it at an angle. So that's just my guess. Like I said, I'm yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical. How do you calm down an angry elemental? You got to know which elemental that you're dealing with first. So it kind of depends. Wounded knee, I can't, no, I won't go there. Nope. So I will not go there. I won't also go to like Auschwitz. No. Now the Black Hills to me, very soothing. Very, very soothing. Now there's parts that are a little spicy, but for the most part, the Black Hills is really special. There's something really special about the Black Hills. I still don't know, but it seems really special to me, and I don't know why. So maybe had some past lives there. Meh, I don't know. Um, have I ever been frightened by my own abilities or something that's come from them? No, because I've had them all my life. So I will be honest with you, real people scare me more than spirit ever will. And I know that sounds so strange, but spirit to me is very predictable. So they don't have necessarily free will like people do. People's will tell you one thing and their intent is something completely different. So that's not always easy. So for me, I've never really been frightened. There's been a few things that made my hair raise, and everything in you tells you to run, but you have to learn how to fight that instinct and stay put and figure out what's going on. So again, I'm not one to run. I'm just not. So, which most people do because that's your natural instinct is telling you get the hell out of there. So, but obviously if there's certain areas that I've been to that I can't. I know my brother and I went a couple years back to Shucks downtown Omaha, and I was not I wasn't. The minute I sat down, I'm like, I don't feel good, and I knew it had nothing to do with food or anything like that. It really was that there's something there. So I know that downtown Omaha, there's a few pockets that are pretty spicy, but I haven't come across anything really bad per se. Um, what happens to a graveyard after the church is torn down? Usually it does remain. Usually it remains, or there's some sort of a plaque or a marker 9 times out of 10. And they always try to keep those markers there. I know back in the day, a lot of times they were made out of, just piled up rocks and wood, and that doesn't last very long. So only the really people that had money could afford, limestone. So that was a big, big deal. Jenny, she's asking to practice the ability of cemetery touching stones. I always, again, before I walk in, I always make my intention known. So I'm like, I am not here to disturb anybody. I am simply here to learn. And anybody that could teach me different skills, I would appreciate that. So I make that very known. I tell them what my intent is. I do not mean any disrespect nor harm. So there are certain guardians, though, that get a little bitchy. I will tell you the one for me, personally, the ones with the biggest guardians is the one in the Fremont Cemetery, because they moved everybody from the park over to that cemetery, and that has been vandalized a few times. So the guardians to that cemetery, I mean, when he first showed up, he was on a horse, and then there was like 4 or 5 other guardians on horses, and I was like, oh boy. And he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, and mind you, I had a bus full of people. I'm like, we're here to visit. And he's like, stay on the cement. That is all. I'm like, got it. So, but the guardian, like I said, it all depends. What would be the best advice as somebody who's new investigating? Would it be good to go on ghost tours first? You know what? I would say go on a ghost tour first. Absolutely. So, because a lot of times you'll even feel things on ghost tours. I love ghost tours. I really do. I still do them. So anytime we go on vacation, that's kind of what me and the girls always do. That's kind of our thing. But I will tell you, yes, I always carry a piece of black tourmaline with me, knowing that I'm going to go on a ghost tour or something like that. The best thing that you can do to prevent anything coming home from you is to make sure that you sage yourself before you get inside. So the biggest thing is just make sure that you sage above your head, your crown, and underneath your feet. So don't forget about that. And then I'm going to highly recommend that you take a sea salt bath, not Epsom salt, a sea salt bath before you go to bed, or you are going to have what we call a ghost hangover. So if you've never been on a ghost tour with me, I always tell people you are going to have if you don't take a salt bath, you are definitely going to have some issues tomorrow. So don't make any plans the next day after a ghost hunt or a ghost investigation, because you're going to be exhausted. You will be tired. So, and salt baths help to recharge the batteries fairly quickly. So I highly recommend sage the hell out of your whole body, your auric field, before you walk inside your home. And then I'd especially make sure that you, like I said, take a nice sea salt Bath. Old Market Emporium basement haunted. I I will tell you, I have a hard time walking in antique places like that. So I don't know, most like with that much shit in there, I don't know how it couldn't be. Um, but the biggest thing is that I'm not, I don't know. I can't do antique malls. They make me sick. So like physically sick. Because there's so much energy and there's just too much for me. And I'm already weirdly sensitive and I don't care how hard I tap out. Antique malls antique malls, hospitals, I can't do those. So like, I'm really sick if I'm going to the hospital. Let's just put it that way. Um, but antiques and I are not really friends. I haven't been to Casadega, Florida. Haven't been. How can I help my dog? Yeah, get spooked and run. Sarah, first things first, sage. And the biggest thing is that you always sage your house. And you want to make sure to hit all the corners because corners hold residual energy. So you want to make sure to do that. If we need to go a next step up, if you need to go a next step up, you feel like maybe sage isn't working for you or palo or whatever, then you can salt the outside of your home. So regular sea salt, table salt, whatever. But take some salt and do one big circle around the outside of your home. That's kind of the next level up. To really help kind of prevent anything from coming in. You could do holy water as well. That works. So I know I'm a reverend. There's a couple other people that are too. If you want, I do weirdly bless people's water. So a lot of people will bring me water. They're like, can you bless it? I'm like, yeah, sure. So, but I could do that too, if that's the case. But like I said, it doesn't take really much to kind of keep your home cleansed. So not a bad idea. Invited to Omaha Nation, North Winnebago. Very surprised at the natural energies. Yes, Will. When I went out there, it weirdly felt like home, and that's the best word I can use. So, sage could set off the fire alarms. It does me, especially the first time you do it, but who cares? So after you're all done smoking the hell out of your house, open your windows up, air it out, you're good to go. So, I have not been to the Haunted Museum downtown. No thanks. So again, I don't want to willingly put myself in a position where I could be bit, punched, scratched, attacked, and then be completely exhausted the next day. No thanks. Nope, that's not my thing. Yeah, if you're afraid of sage, you can do the holy water instead. You could put some black tourmaline in the corner of your apartment. That works just fine too, because I know a lot of people, are in apartments and they can't set off the fire alarms because everything will go off. So if that's the case, black tourmaline in the four corners of your house, especially pyramids, black obsidian pyramids or even shungite pyramids are great. So those are all protectors. Can spirits in my home tell when someone comes into our home that isn't necessarily good? Yeah, absolutely. And it really honestly depends. Like I've been in places where there was a female spirit that would literally attack the male spirits that were in there because she was attacked and that's how she died. And she was still held a lot of anger. So that could be a case. Another one could be quite the opposite, where a guy is haunting the place, a male spirit's haunting and he doesn't like women. And so he attacks women. So absolutely. I mean, I think that yes, it definitely can. So let's see. Coolest cemetery I've ever been to so far. Probably Prospect Hill. So Prospect Hill, I believe, is Bellevue. I think that one's in Bellevue because Prospect Hill is where the original OG people that built Omaha are there. And in the other cemetery, and I'm terrible with names. In the other cemetery, that's where their children are at. So, like, for instance, what am I trying to think of? Because Prospect Hill has like Mr. Millard, Millard was named after him. So he's buried there. So I think Prospect Hill is like at the OGs. So I think I think that one's the best one. And that's the one that I've gotten the best pictures from too. So I think it's great. Do you think people that experience sleep paralysis have an attachment? Absolutely not. No, not all of them do. Nope. A lot of times, sleep paralysis is that you are floating outside of your body, you're astral traveling, and your body is starting to wake up before your soul is in your body, and your soul has to jam its way back into the body, and that sometimes is what sleep paralysis is. That's where you feel like somebody's sitting on top of your chest, or getting like, yeah, literally sitting on your chest. Sometimes it's not. It's actually your soul trying to get back into your body, because your body woke up before your soul did. So you get into fight or flight mode, and that's why you wake up all shaky sometimes and weird. So, but no, I don't necessarily think that a negative entity attachment. Enlightened people, by the way, if you're seeing 1111, enlightened people will not ever have a negative entity attachment. So you don't need to worry about that. It's only the unenlightened ones, who are usually alcoholics, have severe mental health issues, people that are really angry. Those are the ones that are going to be more or less perfect for a negative entity attachment, because they're not going to go with somebody with a high vibe. They're going to go with somebody in a low vibe. So it depends on your vibration. High vibrational people aren't going to have to worry about attachments or anything like that. So, Hannah's Grave and Plattsmouth. Ooh, I haven't heard about that one. Yet. Fremont, very sick with residual energy. Yes, Brownsville is like that too. I don't care to go to Brownsville very often because of that. It's very layered. And layered is the best word I can use, because it's residual energy in one era, residual energy, and lots of water. That's that. I don't care for that town. I'm sure the people in it are wonderful, but the energy, I'm like, no. Opinion of shadow people. I think that shadow people have been getting a lot more attention because that's how they got started in the first place. We never heard about shadow people until people started talking about it, and you manifest things. So I think they are a recent manifestation. But I've seen a few. I don't really understand them very well because they don't interact with me. Because a lot of times I will look and they'll be like, they're surprised that I can see them, and then they literally leave as soon as possible. So don't really know much about that. But like I said, I don't think that we've never heard of shadow people up until about 10 years ago. Now all of a sudden everybody knows everything about shadow people. So, and I said, to me, you can manifest things that aren't there. I don't think people realize how truly powerful your minds are. If you sit there every day and sit there and say, oh, I have a gnome who's a friend. Look at my gnome, look at my gnome, look at my gnome. Well, pretty soon you will manifest that gnome, and everybody else will be able to see it too. So you're setting an intent, you're manifesting that. That's true. So I think that a shadow person has probably been manifested, because I do not think that a shadow person is necessarily a soul. So, can an enlightened people fall prey to negative attachments cast by a living person? Absolutely not. No. If that were the case, I'd be dead 8 times from today. I don't know. I'm like, no, I don't believe that at all. So I don't believe in curses either. If you believe that you're cursed, then you are. So I don't believe in them, because again, if that's the case, then I'd be in trouble a long time ago, because I don't, like I said, not everybody's my friend. They don't like me. Unenlightened people don't like me. So, and it's just because they're unenlightened. That's okay. Let's see. Shadow person goes, can enlightened people fall prey? Have you ever visited a place where your ancestors are buried? I have no idea who my ancestors are. So, because for me and my time-space reality, it really doesn't matter, because I'm my own person. So I make my own free will choices, but I don't know where my ancestors are. I don't even know. So the tips on how to avoid buying a haunted house, I will tell you, you will know it the minute you walk in the door. Because you're going to walk in the door and go, oh, this doesn't feel right. But then your brain is going to go, oh, look, but it's got the kitchen we like. It's got the basement. Hey, it's got everything that we need. And everything in you is like, little off, little when you walk in. So I had a couple do that about 5 years ago. They asked me about this one particular house. They knew there was a murder-suicide in that had taken place in the house. And they said it was everything that they wanted, but it felt a little off. And they wanted to know if they should buy it. Not only no, but hell no. Well, they ended up buying the house. About 2 months later, they started calling me going, hey, we need some help. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not helping. Sorry. Told you not to do it. So, and Sage wasn't going to do the trick on that one. So I had really advised them not to do it. They didn't take my advice, and then they wanted me to fix the problem. I'm like, no, no. So I will tell you, I don't like um, ghosts per se, because it is easier for me to talk to your loved ones because they're at a higher vibrational level than a ghost is. Ghosts exhaust me, exhausting. So everybody's always gets done with me getting on stage or talking, with a live audience reading or even with an individual reading and doing like 6 to 8 a day. They're like, aren't you tired? I'm like, no, actually, ghost hunts, that will zap me. And even though I know what to do, even though I have the black tourmaline and I have my grounding pendant on and I took a salt bath and I sage, I still get tired. So that's why for me, I don't care to do those anymore. I'll do them if I have to, but I'd rather not. I'd rather let somebody else do it. So, what are some other stones and their benefits? But like I said, I would stick with the black and the red ones. Those are going to be the most protective. So black tourmaline is very protective. So is black obsidian. Some people like to use garnet is another good one. That's actually pretty good, especially for the girls. But really any black type crystal or red crystal is going to be fairly protective or grounding. So if you forget, and I've done this in a pinch, if you forget to grab like black tourmaline or something like that, literally go outside, grab a black rock. That's it. Just grab a black rock. It'll protect you. It's very grounding, so you can't overfeel. So what do you think about recurring dream where there's a dark person standing in my hallway? Could this be a spirit? It could be a spirit trying to come through and communicate, Mason. So like I said, I would sage the house first. If this continues, then it might be somebody trying to get a hold of your attention. And so I am always one, whether I'm in a woke state or in a dream state, I'm always going to approach. So I'm like, can I help you? Do you need something? 9 times out of 10, they're shocked that I'm even communicating with them. So a lot of times they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yes, I'm here. I'm looking right at you. What do you want? So, and 9 times out of 10, they either want acknowledgement or they're lost. Because remember, when you die, you still have free will. So whether you choose to go to the light or you choose not to, it's still your free will. So, but if you don't go to the light right away, sometimes people lose the light. And so then they find people like me that are like bright little beacons to talk to. So that's why a lot of times then I'll help them cross over, or they're just very surprised, or they get really mad and they call me the same word all the time. So starts with a C, ends with a T. I won't say the word. So, but normally those are guys and they call me those names and I'm like, oh, so you must be from about the 20s, I'm guessing, by using that name. So, let's see. Can't all ghosts be passed over? Oh yeah, all ghosts can be passed over if they want to be crossed over. It's only if they want to. They still have free will. So sure, yeah, I could probably force the issue, but if they don't want to go, then a lot of times I will negotiate. So I'll say, fine, tell you what, you can stay here because you feel like you have some karma to owe to the family. But here's the deal. You are not allowed to do A, B, and C, and you have to stay within these, within these parameters. And I'm like, agree? And they're like, okay, fine, whatever. So then usually if we can agree to something, then a lot of times that they will have the tendency to leave the family alone. So sometimes we can negotiate. Other times I'm like, listen. So, and then I'll do the mom voice, and a lot of times they end up listening to me. So, but like I said, I don't really ever have to swear which I have a sailor's mouth, but I really don't have to when it comes to spirit. Usually they're just surprised that I can even communicate. And then when I can, I'm like, do you need help? And they're like, yes, I'm looking for my mom. And I'm like, well, baby, she's not here. I'm like, would you like to go? Because I can get you home pretty quick. And they're like, oh, okay. And then, like I said, I light the white candle, ask for God to help me out here. I'll know angels are around. There are certain angels called carrion angels that they're a little dirtier, grittier. They actually look like kind of weirdly the Dementors off of Harry Potter. Those are the ones that can come into those lower levels to grab spirit to help guide them home or take them home. So a lot of times I'll know that they're around because my ears will ring at a very, very high pitch. That's how I know angels are around. And then almost always, like I said, when they cross over, you'll get the zip behind your back. So, does a ghost look like a dark figure of a person? Can only enlightened people see them? No, Sarah, unenlightened people can see them too, especially if they want to make themselves known. But again, they have to be able to pull that power from somewhere. They got to be able to manifest. So they're either going to use your energy to do it. They're going to use limestone, water, a power grid of some sort. I have found a lot of times parents will sit there and tell me that their child is, even as a teenager, coming up to them saying that their place is haunted. And I'm like, is the main electrical box in their bedroom? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, let me guess. Their head is right below that box. And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, could we not do that? So that's usually 9 times out of 10. I can debunk most everything because of electrical outlets 9 times out of 10. So a lot of people will try to, use those, I don't know what you call them. They're to sense electricity, especially outlets, things like that. And a lot of times, people will use them and go, oh, look, I'm getting a hit in this wall. I'm like, yeah, because it's a live wire. So like I said, I'm very, very skeptical when it comes to ghost hunting stuff, because like I said, I want to be able to debunk it 9 times out of 10 I can. So, I keep seeing my grandfather at my house. He's never been here when he was alive. Why would he come now? He's probably been there the whole time, Corey. You're just able to see him right now. He's probably been visiting everybody. You just are intuitive enough now, or along in your spiritual journey enough now to be able to see him. So, okay. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys some pictures, best I can on my cell phone here, of some of the things that I have not been able to debunk, and some other things. EMF meter. Thank you. What do I think about Skinwalker Ranch? I'm curious. Very curious. So Skinwalkers creep me out a little bit, so do rakes, but I'm like, why? I'm a why person. So is it a good sign if you feel peace at a cemetery? I do. I like I said, cemeteries are very peaceful to me. Okay. No, it's not true if ghosts get more energy from somebody who's scared or not scared, although demonic and negative entity attachment, but especially demonic, feeds off of quite literally fear, negative emotions, and or high sexual, like if you're really highly sexual, they feed off the luge or the energy of it. So yes and no. Have you ever had a spirit of a former customer come to you? Yep. Okay, so let me show you some pictures. And the first ones I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you that I get these pictures weekly. And I hate these because these are not spirit. This is a refraction off your camera lens, okay? And it's this one right here. And I'll show you several pictures. So here's one. So you can kind of see, I'm trying to get it so it's not so glary. See the green dot? That is not an orb, okay? See the sun in the picture? Wherever the sun is, on the opposite side of the sun, you are going to see a green orb. Orbs, to me, no. So there's one. So, and I can keep flipping through because here's another one. So you can see the green orb right there in the picture. Right there's the sun, opposite side. Not spirit. Sorry, no. So here's another one. Oh, look, there's the sun, another green orb. So that is a refraction from your camera from the sun. It's a lens flare. All right. So there's another one. So there's a green orb, there's the sun. So it's always a refraction. So that's what I'm telling you, is that this is not spiritual. People always email me these and they're like, oh my gosh, no, it's totally my grandma. I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's not. But then they want to argue with me. And I'm like, you know what? You think it's your grandma, you go right ahead. But you asked me my opinion, and I'm telling you, this is not spirit. Okay. So here's some other things. Like I said, there's another one here that you can see right there's the sun right there. It's not necessarily green, but it's kind of a bluish green. Again, that's just lens flare. So that to me is not spirit led. All right. Yeah. Full moons will do it too. You're right, Angel. So here is here's another one that I get a lot of too. And I always have to giggle because I'm like, no, hang on. I don't know why it's doing that, but right here. So see all the orbs in the picture? So do you also see how there's like, I don't know, probably 50 orbs in the picture? Because that's not orbs. That is dust. In fall like this, if it's a dry fall, which we just had a really good rain, but if it's a dry fall and you are walking around and you happen to take a picture, I am telling you, that is not spirit. That's dust. That's dust. A lot of times people send me pictures with a fire and there's a lot of, they're like, ooh, look at all the orbs. I'm like, you have a fire. That's the dust coming off the fire. Like it's ash. So like I said, I'm very skeptical when it comes to my pictures. I really am. So here is one where, and if you guys haven't done a ghost tour with me, I'll explain kind of where we were at. This one was taken at Hummel Park, and I was walking and I heard in my head somebody say, "Mom," and I was going, I turned around, nobody else heard it. So I knew then at that point it was spirit that I heard. And then I heard it one more time, "Mom." And I thought, okay, that's weird. So I put my hand out because it sounded like it was on this side of me. So I put my hand out. I told somebody, I'm like, take a picture, take several pictures, take them fast. As I'm putting my hand out, I could feel a little girl grab my hand. And this was taken right before that little girl grabbed my hand. You can kind of see it. I'm going to try to point this out best I can without a flare here. So you can see her hand right there. You can see her white dress right here. So that was a great picture that was taken. I don't know if I can get it really. So that was a really good picture that was taken. Again, you can see the hand right there, and then you can see her dress. So that was taken at Hummel Park. I was actually going down the stairs, and like I said, I heard that one, and that was pretty interesting. So there was another one, I believe, that we were at the cemetery, Fairview Cemetery, and there's an area there that's got a lot of Mormons from when they froze. I don't remember what year that was, but it's mostly in the Florence areas where a lot of them, unfortunately, they had a really terrible winter and a lot of them were killed. And so this one, I was in the Mormon cemetery and I said something along the lines of, "Hey, excuse me, I have a question. Would anybody know anything about Joseph Smith?" And he was the one that I believe, is it Joseph Smith? Did I say that right? Or is it John Smith? Oh my gosh. So I'm having an awful day today with remembering names. But I said that, and this one came out of quite literally the grave itself. So you can see this one right there. Somebody happened to take a picture of the cemetery where right there's that little girl after I said Joseph Smith. So you can see her right there. You can see her. She even has the Joseph Smith. So yeah, but you can see the high collar, the face, everything. So there's that. John Smith. Yep. And then the other one is, so there was, this one was taken. I had several people, when I said this, I'm like, just shoot. Like, don't do this. Just sit there and go ting, 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 ting. Just shoot as many as you can. So these two shots were taken while I said, does anybody know who John Smith is? Right away, I mean, you could feel the activity immediately. And what I tell people is that when you take a picture, don't look at your camera, look out where you're taking the picture, because sometimes with a flash of the camera, you will actually see a ghost standing there from the flash of your camera, not through your camera, but over the camera. So this was one. And then here is another one that was taken the same time. So, and then, so there's her collard. You could see her actually the collard on her sleeve there, and there's a collar, and that's her face, which, by the way, noses, eyes, mouths aren't always easy to see because those details are very difficult sometimes when they show up like that. But that was another one. Like I said, I can kind of show you that. That was also taken the same time. Yes, I can see the pictures, Brad. So a lot of times I'm like, right there, shoot, right there, right there. So it's it's so stupid. You would think that I'd grab my camera and do that, but I don't think, because I'm on the tour, I'm telling everybody else to get it for me, because I figured with 40 cameras going, somebody's got to capture something cool, right? So that one happened to be at the Fairview Cemetery. This one was also at the Fairview Cemetery on the opposite end. And this one had a lot of soldiers in it. And so at the time, you can see this guy standing right here. I kind of have a profile shot of him right there. He had served at one point. Now, I didn't. So I said, hey, can you say something that might maybe get their attention? He goes, sure. And then he said, attention, soldiers. And you could hear, vroom, vroom. Now, I could hear that. And I'm looking around and nobody else heard it. And I'm like, oh, boy. And then he said, about face. And you could hear, zoop. And all of a sudden, you just heard this. I don't know, the word is zoop. I just heard that. And I was like, oh boy. At this point, people were taking pictures. And then he said, present arms. When he said that, it wasn't just me. Everybody that I took with me on that tour heard click, 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 click. Like everybody was holding their gun, like click, click. I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, don't tell him to fire. Don't tell him to fire, because at that point, that wigged me out, because I heard it and I'm looking around and everybody else around me also heard it. And then that's when I was like, all right, don't tell him to fire, because why? If I can hear that audibly, I don't want to know if they can actually do that. But what ended up happening was when he said that, we actually got something here. And I'll see if I can get this the best that I can. But you can see there's that guy standing there. And right there is kind of a double headstone. But next to the headstone right there, I'm pointing to it the best I can. Right there, I'm going to blow this up. And you are going to see a soldier. I don't know if I can see it. You can see kind of a soldier right there. Can you see them? There's his boots. There's the man. And you'll see another guy behind him running. You'll see another guy running behind him. So there's the guy, black boots. He's got the gun right there. So, and then I have another guy there. So that was taken in a series of 3. And again, I couldn't debunk it because it was the middle picture that was taken. I was like, whoa. So it was a great pick. So yeah, I do have that one too. Like I said, you can actually see the soldier. So, and I'll go back out so you can see, like I said, that's where he was at. Then when you blow it up, you can see that soldier, and then you can see another soldier behind him running. So really interesting, right? So there's that one. At the same cemetery also, there was, at a different time, this would have been a different time. There, when I said something about, Joseph Smith, or John Smith, I can't remember, sorry. But then I was sitting down and there was a woman that was around me and she goes, may I help you, miss? And I remember looking up at her and I am like, I'm just like, she was full bodied, hair was up in a bun. I was describing what she looked like to me and everybody else. I mean, but she was like, can I help you, my dear? She had kind of gray clothing on, longer sleeve, but like her arms, like they were open, like her sleeves were longer, bigger. So I thought that was a little odd, but she was very, very gentle soul. So as I'm talking to this woman, somebody actually got a picture of her and I couldn't believe it. So you can actually see her right here. So where my thumb is where I was sitting. So this was taken. You can actually see her hair's up in a bun, the gray and the hands. And she's looking right at me like, can I help you with something, dear? So there is something else that's trying to show up here. I do not know what that is. It could be another spirit, but I honestly don't know. So, but yeah, this was the woman that I was talking to. I was actually sitting right here. But like I said, I was kind of sitting on a tree stump and I was looking up at her and like, cause her hands were almost like right in my face. And I'm going, and I just kind of traced the hands to and I kind of looked up. I'm like, oh, but she was a beautiful woman. I mean, but she had her hair up in a bun and she looked to be about my age. And she was just like, well, can I help you, my dear? So she goes, well, what questions do you have? And at that point, I felt obligated to ask a question because she's talking to me. And I mean, I'm talking to her like I would anybody else, but I didn't want to, I don't know, feel like a fool in front of her and be like, oh, I just wanted you to show up so we could take pictures. No, then I started asking questions. I'm like, so did you die here? She's like, well, I just got cold and I fell asleep. And I'm like, oh. So, and she was, I didn't realize that I actually died, but it's okay. I'm like, okay. So I didn't know what else to ask her because like I said, I felt obligated to at least have a conversation considering that she came over. So this one was taken at, um, Prospect Hill. No, I can see them all the time. I'm not, just not necessarily at night in the cemetery, Jenny. This one was taken. What I do is I make sure that there's nothing back behind certain people, and I ask for about a group of 6 to come up and stand in a line with me. And I always make sure that there's nothing back so we can rule out anything like that. So I had 5 ladies, me included. I was in the middle, and I said, hey, if anyone would like to come take a photograph, please come up behind us and feel free to take a photograph. And so at that point, all these pictures were going on. And a lot of times when you are in that line, you're asking them to come up behind you and take a picture, the energy will drop almost 20 degrees back behind you. This one just happened to capture people behind the girls. So you'll kind of see this one. There's the lineup that I was talking about with the 3 girls. There was nothing behind these 2 girls when we took that photograph. So there is that one there, and it's a male, and there's another male here. This one, you can tell he has a hat on. So this one is a little fuzzy, but you can tell he's a guy, and he started to come up in the picture. So they were not there. There was nobody back behind them, and nobody would have played a prank because I was there. I kept turning around, looking around. So like I said, this one here, these are 2 dudes. These are 3 chicks lined up here that I said, okay. And this one's looking at this one going, do you feel that cold stuff? Yeah, I do feel that cold stuff. It wasn't until I got on the bus that I showed the girls this, and they were like, they just froze. They were like, oh boy. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you were feeling. So after that, they were like, they stayed on the bus the rest of the time. They were like, no, we're done. So, but yeah, you can see the 2 spirits back behind these 3 girls. So there's one there, a dude there, and a dude there. So you can see that one. So, but I wanted to show you that one too. This was one also at Prospect Hill, and I went to go do kind of one of those where I wanted a group of people there, but somebody kept tapping me on the shoulder, and I kept going, what? Like, what? And finally, after the 3rd time, it pissed me off enough that I turned around, I'm like, what? What do you need? What? And so finally, I was just talking to a Native American spirit is what I was doing. Well, this is when they decided to get the Flear out and see if they could find what I was looking at. So this was taken with, I believe, Angie's Flear phone, which is that kind of a night sensor type one. But you'll see this in the picture right there that looks like kind of an outline. So that's when I was talking to this guy who just wouldn't leave me alone. I was like, what do you want? I'm like, I'm trying to freaking talk to other people, not just you. So, but he just clearly wanted my attention. He was Native American. So, but you can kind of see kind of that outline. What's weird is that I'm also like double exposed. So that could be maybe something that we could rule out. But I think it's at least definitely different, because I know at that point in time I was talking to somebody behind my shoulder, like, would you just get out of here? So this one was also taken at Prospect Hill, and this one I could not rule out. And the main reason was because it was taken 3 shots in a row, 1, 2, 3. This was a middle shot taken, and I'm pretty sure it's an angel. When I first saw it, I'm like, I tried to debunk it. I couldn't. Then I had Angie look at it. I had some other people look at it, and they're like, yeah, we can't debunk this one either. So this is what the original picture looked like. Sorry, guys, my phone's dirty. But this is what the original picture looked like. You can see that little weird white thing right there. Well, when I took it and like, I didn't superimpose or anything, I just kind of blew it up a little bit with my phone. That's what it was. So if you can see that, looks just like an angel. So that's why I'm like, now wait a second. So, but we went back to that same area. There is nothing that would have refracted or would have reflected. There's nothing there. I can't debunk this one, but you can clearly see what looks like I said, angel wings here, there's the head. Some people maybe said it was a fairy. Very well could be. It looks fairly angelic to me. It feels lighter energy. But yeah, you can kind of see that one for yourself and kind of see what you think. So that one is also taken at Prospect Hill. And then this one, these are ones that I can't, I don't know. They're called rods, and they're a little bit harder for me to debunk because they could be bugs. It could be like a lightning bug, but I know in this particular evening, the lightning bugs were already dead because we had a couple freezes already. So, but this is what I'm talking about when I mean rods. Um, Here's one you can see. That's me. And then you can see one rod circling me there and one rod circling me there. I also have it in another picture here, but the whole picture turned out weird. I got this black weird thing here, but there's another rod and another rod. So like I said, I'm not too sure what those rods are, but people in the community have said that they are ghosts, but a little bit harder to tell, but those are rods. So they always have that same like pattern to it. But again, you can't rule out a bug moving and you capturing it. I mean, that's very possible. But I can't explain why, like I said, the middle of this is like that. So, but definitely different. So I've got 2 or 3 of those that I can't quite explain away. So like I said, there's that other one. And then last, I will show you the one that was taken at Barnard Park in Fremont. That was a park that used to be a cemetery, and then they took all the bodies. They didn't take all the bodies. They took most of the bodies and put them then at the cemetery there in Fremont. So this was taken, and I was on the opposite side of the bathroom, and I came around the corner and I saw a woman, high bun, corset. She had the collar up to here, and I looked at her and she looked at me and she goes, and then she disappeared. And I thought, like, I ask myself it too. Did I just see that? Yes, I know I just saw that if I'm asking that question. So, but somebody happened to capture, and this one's a little bit harder to see, but it's almost weirdly superimposed. But you can kind of see, this one's a little bit harder to see. I'm trying to do the best I can. You can see kind of that there's the lady's head, there's her high collar, there's her dress, and then it flares out right there. So it reminds me of, on the beginning of Ghostbusters, how the lady's like, shh, but it's like literally looks a lot like that. So, but you can kind of see that was taken at Barnard Park. They're in Fremont. So, but yeah, wanted to kind of show you those kind of different things. And like I said, and I wanted to show you things that to me, like I said, I get a lot of people that will show me orbs, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I want to see a ghost. I want to see something like, give me something. So every once in a while, I have people that will send me orbs after they blow them up, and they're like, but look, you can see a face in it. I'm like, you can see a face in just about everything. So again, for me, I'm going to say it's not a spirit, but a lot of times people want it to be who they want it to be. They're like, oh no, I know it's my grandma. And I'm like, sorry. Or I know it's so-and-so. And I'm like, sorry. So, let's see, went to Peyton Randolph House, Williamsburg, Virginia. Ooh, took a picture of boy's face, body, and window. Yep, probably. I believe that. So when you feel spirit, do you have to ask out loud for them or reply? A lot of times I do it in my head. So if there's people around, I'm going to do it in my head because otherwise people think I'm crazy. So, but 9 times out of 10, I'll do it in my head. Sometimes I'll do it more audible. It depends. So, but yeah, I wanted to totally show you guys those pictures and again, show you what to me is valid and what isn't so valid. And like I said, I'm a very skeptical person. I always have been. So like I said, it takes a lot for me to sit there and say, I think you might have something. Other times, not so much. But like I said, I just feel so bad because these people, they contact me and they want them to be their loved one. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not. So, but like I said, that's the biggest thing I would tell you is, you know what, it's the biggest thing is that just make sure that you go in protected. I mean, you want to have some black tourmaline. And then when you leave, make sure that you sage yourself, make sure that, that you take a salt bath, stuff like that. If your black tourmaline, if you're holding it in your hand or you have a tourmaline bracelet or something like that and it breaks, leave it. Leave it where it lies. So if it breaks, it broke for a reason because if black tourmaline breaks, it really is going to protect you. So that's why I'm like, if it breaks, leave it there, go get another one. So black tourmaline is the exception to the rule. You can get another piece of black tourmaline if it breaks. So, but a lot of times I tell people if it breaks, it did its job, it's protecting you. Same with hematite rings, it protects you. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this kind of gets you geared up for the holiday season, right? The whole Halloween season. So, all right, guys, want to tell you thank you. I will be doing one probably more in January, February about like cryptoids, Bigfoot, stuff like that. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure that you do that. Make sure that you also subscribe to my newsletter too, because the algorithms on Facebook is beginning to change. So there's going to be less and less people that are going to be able to see what I'm posting. So make sure that you're at least keeping an eye on my page, or at least getting the notifications, stuff like that. Otherwise, it's getting lost in people's feeds. All right. So want to thank everybody again for this evening. You guys take care. Have a wonderful week ahead. All right, guys. Take care. Thanks. Bye.